On March 21, 1935, a diplomatic bomb was dropped on every major embassy in the world. It wasn't a declaration of war, but it was an ultimatum that would erase a 2,500-year superpower from the map. The request was absolute. Stop using the word Persia in all official correspondence and start using Iran. To Western diplomats, it was baffling. They were being asked to delete a name that had defined civilization itself since the time of the Greeks. Imagine if the United States suddenly demanded the world call it Virginia, because that's where a major region was located. That is exactly the kind of massive linguistic error the world had been making for millennia. But why make this move in 1935, in the shadow of a rising Nazi Germany? Was this a simple act of national pride, or a calculated gamble involving the most dangerous regime in history? To understand why Persia became Iran, you have to understand that Persia never actually existed to the people living there. It was a label slapped on them by outsiders who were looking at the world through a very narrow window. In 559 BC, Cyrus the Great rose from a tribe in a region called Pars. When Greek historians like Herodotus encountered his empire, they took the name of that one province and applied it to the entire civilization. It was a branding error of epic proportions. While the Greeks saw a Persian threat, the people inside the plateau called themselves the children of Ariana, the land of the Aryans. This was the world's first true global superpower, ruling a staggering 44% of the Earth's population. But even as Cyrus was drafting the first Charter of Human Rights, he was doing it under a name the West would refuse to learn for 2,000 years. But the Persians were tired of the Greek label, and soon a new dynasty would try to carve their real name into the very bones of the earth. In 224 AD, the Sasanian Dynasty decided to make the internal name official. Ardashir I carved his title into the cliffside, Shahanshah Iran, King of Kings of Iran. To the Sasanians, the world was split in two: Iran, the land of truth and light, and Iran, the land of non-Iran and chaos. This wasn't just geography. It was a cosmic identity that they defended against Rome for 4 centuries. They built global universities and pioneered the ancestor of chess, all while the West continued to call them Persians. But this golden age of the land of the Aryans was about to collide with a storm rising from the southern deserts. In the 7th century, the Sasanian Empire didn't just fall. It shattered under the weight of the Arab conquest. The invaders brought a new religion and a new language that threatened to erase the Iranian identity forever. In Egypt and Syria, local cultures were absorbed, but the people of the plateau accepted Islam while refusing to let their culture die. They executed a cultural conquest from within, with Persian bureaucrats and scholars eventually becoming the administrative and intellectual backbone of the Islamic world. The poet Ferdowsi spent 30 years writing the Shahnameh, an epic that deliberately avoided Arabic words to save the Persian language from extinction. It was a shield made of poetry that kept the concept of Iran alive, even as the land was torn apart by successive invaders. When the Mongols invaded in the 13th century and massacred millions, a strange phenomenon occurred. The conquerors became the conquered. These fierce warriors eventually traded their swords for Persian art and poetry, maintaining the nation's identity by being Persianized from the inside out. By 1501, the Safavid dynasty unified the land under Shia Islam, creating a religious wall between them and their Sunni neighbors. Internally, they were Mamluk Iran, the domains of Iran. But to the merchants of Europe, they were still just Persia. The identity was set, but the 20th century was about to turn this ancient pride into a modern political weapon. By the early 1900s, Persia was a humiliated buffer zone, its oil being pumped dry by the British while the Russians watched from the north. The name had become a colonial brand, associated with weakness and exotic carpets. In 1921, a military commander named Reza Khan seized power in a coup, determined to drag his nation into the modern age. He wanted strength, he wanted railroads, and he wanted a name that didn't sound like a Victorian museum exhibit. But as Reza Shah looked for a partner to help him rebuild, he found one that would change the trajectory of his rebranding effort: Nazi Germany. By the early 1930s, the Nazis were Iran's largest trading partner, and their obsession with Aryan supremacy was beginning to bleed into Iranian diplomacy. Historians have long debated a chilling possibility: that German advisors encouraged the 1935 name change specifically to highlight a shared Aryan heritage. By reclaiming the name Iran, the land of the Aryans, the Shah was signaling to the world that his people were not just another Middle Eastern colony, but a noble, sovereign race. Reza Shah got his name change, but he didn't realize that Iran would soon become synonymous with something far more volatile than Persia could ever be. The 1935 shift didn't just update a map, it split the country's soul in two. Today, Persia is the name used for art, poetry, and the romanticized past. Iran is the name the world hears in the context of sanctions, revolutions, and nuclear deals. By burying the name Persia, the Shah inadvertently traded a brand of global refinement for a label that now carries the weight of a century of conflict. Reclaiming an ancient identity was an act of absolute sovereignty, but it forced a 3,000-year-old civilization to choose between its legendary history and its defiant modern reality. Names have the power to build empires or set them on fire. After seeing this 3,000-year journey, I want to hear your take in the comments. Do you think Reza Shah's decision to bury the name Persia helped the nation's independence, or did it hurt the Iranian people by erasing their global prestige? This massive rebranding was just the first domino. In our next documentary, we are diving deep into how this exact political shift eventually fueled the most explosive revolution of the 20th century, the total collapse of the Pahlavi dynasty. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss that story when it drops. I'll see you in the comments.